Welcome back to the channel, guys. So unfortunately I haven't been able to make this video as quickly as I would like. I went up to Motorcycle Live on Tuesday the 22nd, so about 6 days ago now, and the first stand I went to see, as you can imagine, was Royal Enfield. Now Royal Enfield actually had some bikes that I hadn't seen before. Classic 350 in the new Signals editions. I think they have Signals Grey, Signals Sand, perhaps a couple of others. And they had the Hunter 350, and of course the Super Meteor 650, which is the bike that I went up really to see. So the Hunter I hadn't seen. I sat on the Hunter, didn't really gel with it. I think it's just because it's a modern Royal Enfield bike and they've taken away the chrome and some of the historical touches, and I think that means the bike loses some of its charm. I wasn't quite as enamored with it. It just feels like a stripped back Meteor with a shorter rake and trail, no chrome, and it's lighter, which is cool. I mean, it probably performed better, 17-inch wheels as well, but it's just not for me. I sat on it and I wasn't really engaged. I wasn't really connected to the bike, so didn't know how I'd feel about the Hunter, but I did feel after sitting on it that I probably wouldn't be interested in one. It's a similar story actually with the Classic 350, but it's the opposite. Actually, I test rode the Classic and it was gunmetal grey, which is quite the modern looking hue for the Classic 350. And then when I saw the more retro colour schemes with more chrome, I actually was more drawn to that, and particularly the Signals editions, which hark back to the military heritage of Royal Enfield. Those are bikes which look absolutely stunning, and they've just got all the details are correct. And I think that having the Signals paint scheme might be sort of the high watermark of the Classic 350. You know, they've let the bike be released for a while now, perhaps a year, selling month after month in record numbers, and now they've gone ahead and just upped the bar a little bit to make the bike even nicer. So I was really impressed with that. The Meteor was there as well, Meteor 350. I know you were waiting for its bigger brother, but I'll just touch on the Meteor 350 was there. I think they had a green fireball, which sounds weird to me. I always used to say that red and yellow were fireball colours, but they had a green, matte green fireball, which looked pretty cool. They had the Supernova in red, which is a real nice looking bike. That's, again, they've just upped the ante a little bit. Maybe they had a Stellar or something else. I didn't really spend much time with the Meteor. I've owned it already. I looked at an Interceptor. They've got a strange scrambler type Interceptor, which I didn't really like, to be honest. They've got weird sort of hand guards and bright gold upside down forks. Don't really think suits the Interceptor. I did go and have a look at the Super Meteor 650. They had the three variants there, so I'll start with the Astral colours. So they've got Astral in green, Astral blue, and Astral black. And Astral is kind of equivalent to the Fireball. It's the entry-level colour option. It's all in one hue, so the tank, the fenders, the trim pieces, like the side panels, they're all going to be one colour, which I think is okay, but I haven't seen them up in the flesh. I think the other colour options are going to be better looking bikes. With the Meteor, the Fireball looked great and it stood on its own, perhaps because it was black against a bright yellow or red tank when it was launched. You had gloss black against the tank, which was a very bright colour. Having these kind of more matte hues, I think at least the Astral blue is matte. Maybe it's satin. It's got some kind of reflective quality to it. I just don't think it really works, because don't forget the Meteor 650 is an even bigger bike, so you've got a larger area to cover. What impressed me about the bikes in all categories is the build quality. They've really upped the game again from the Meteor with the fixtures and fittings, with the trim pieces, and I'll show you the footage. You'll see it in B-roll now. It does look excellent up close. This isn't a bike that looks great from 5 or 10 yards away. It looks great when you're right up touching it, looking at all the parts, the hand controls, the foot controls, for example. So having said that, I would probably focus your attention on the second tier. Now, it's still the standard variant of the Meteor, so Meteor 650. So you've got the standard variant, which comes in 5 colour options. And I've just talked about the Astral. The level up from that in terms of paint is the Interstellar. Yeah, because Meteor 350 it was Stellar, and in this version it's Interstellar. There's 2 options for Interstellar. I'm just going to check my notes for this so I don't get it wrong. Interstellar Grey and Interstellar Green. The bike I saw here was Interstellar Green, which was actually a dull, a dark sort of forest green with a yellowy gold pinstripe over a black, gloss black, and that actually looks excellent. So I'd consider probably going for the Interstellar if I was to look at this bike myself. I think it's got a nice combination of colours. You've got the detail in the tank for the pinstripe. It looks really refined. It looks a bit special. It looks a little bit better, to be honest, than the Astral. And it's not too over the top with extras that you may not want and need. And I'll come on to that a little bit when we talk about the next tier. So as we go up to the final tier of the Super Meteor 650, you've got Celestial. So firstly, I mean, I do love the names like Astral, Interstellar, Celestial. They carried on with the theme, and if you look at all the marketing, there's pictures of night sky and comets and that kind of thing. It is really nice. So if you look at the top tier, Celestial, it comes in blue and red paint schemes, and this gives you a two-tone effect, but it's kind of a base coat of the red and the blue over cream. And on the side panel, it's red, but you've got cream Super Meteor 650, which looks really nice. You've also got more chrome, at least in the spec that I saw on the display stand. The Celestial seemed to feature heavily with chrome, whereas the Interstellar was more matte black in terms of the engine guards, sump guard, that kind of thing. So even the extras, of course the indicators as well, were gloss black on the Interstellar, but up at Celestial level, there's more bright work, it's more chrome. So the Celestial paint scheme definitely pops the most, but the Celestial options are only available on the touring variant. So you've got 5 colour options that are associated with the standard Meteor 650, and then you've got 2 colour options which are associated with the touring variant. So Celestial Red, Celestial Blue, you have to spec the bike as touring to get those colour options. Now touring comes with a few bits and bobs. It's got the foot pegs, it's got a touring handlebar, which is kind of like a elongated handlebar. I didn't actually get to sit on the touring variant because it was on the podium. I only got to sit on the Interstellar, but sitting on the Interstellar felt quite comfortable. But the touring variant, you're meant to have touring handlebars to make it a little bit more comfortable again. You also have a windscreen. Now on the Meteor 350 the windscreen wasn't much to write home about. I'd probably be a little bit dubious that it was going to give you as much wind protection as you need. It may also make the situation worse and give you wind buffeting right into your visor. And you just don't want that on a bike, especially when they marketed it as a touring. So we can say fingers crossed, but having been burnt a little bit by the Meteor 350, I would probably opt for one of these bikes and run it without a screen. Yes, the screen looks quite classic, but to have the bike just in its raw naked form, I just think it's better. I had the Supernova Meteor 350. I just took the screen off and I ran it in fireball mode. I just think it looked way better, and it was way better for comfort as well with the wind coming in. The other thing you get with the Supernova, this is going to happen a lot, isn't it? The other thing you get with the Celestial variant is you get a touring backrest, which is a nice thing to have. It gives you a little bit of extra security for the pillion. I don't know whether you'd be riding this bike with a pillion because it already weighs a lot, and that's something I haven't touched yet, but we'll come to that later on. We'll come to the weight. Talking of the pillion seat first before we move on, there's also a little luggage rack which is incorporated, and there's also on the engine, sorry, not the, is it engine guard or frame guards? I don't know what Royal Enfield term them. They also now spotting, that's actually a pun, an unintended pun. They're sporting spotlights or side lights, fog lights, whatever you want to call them. So I don't know whether those are genuine Royal Enfield accessories that you could perhaps option for a Meteor 650, but it looks like they were, and they tie in quite nicely with the theme. So you've got a few little extras there, as well as touring extras that you could add on, like an engine guard, like a sump guard. There's also bar end mirrors, which you could spec as an optional extra as well, which are nice. So overall, the bike's comfortable. The two questions about it for me are really the weight. It's a heavy oil bike, so it's 241 kg and 90% filled with fuel and oil. So if you add a little bit more fuel, you're going to add a couple more kilos. So the tank's 15.7 litres. So if it's 19% full, 90% full, it's going to be 13.5. So if you filled it to the brim, you're going to add an extra 1.5 kilo to the bike. If you were to add other things as well, like the engine guards, the sump guards, bar end mirrors are an optional extra, the pillion seats, maybe that's 2 or 3 kilos. The hard cases which come on the touring version as well. That's going to push the weight from 241 kg up, I think, perhaps into the mid 250s. And that is actually, I hate to say this, but that's like BMW GS weight. Now, it's not comparable because we're at a 740mm seat height, so it'll drop the centre of gravity really down. Most riders will be able to get both feet flat on the floor, so that should help a lot. But it's still going to be a hefty old bike. There's no reverse gear or anything like that to move it around on, so you're going to have to manhandle it. So it's going to be a little bit more tricky, and obviously the more you add to the bike, the heavier it's going to get in terms of the extras. So I'm a bit concerned about that. I probably would test ride it before I was to take the plunge. I've learnt my lesson with buying bikes and seen based on marketing material, so we're not going to do that again. The other thing which probably bugged me a little bit is that they've gone for quite a modernisation in the feel. I feel like the Interceptor and the classic 500, for example, were very authentic feeling Royal Enfield bikes in the fact that they had good chrome. They looked essentially like a bike from the 1960s. I really love that about those Royal Enfields. And the engine note really went along as well and sort of complemented the overall experience. With the Meteor, if you took the Supernova variant, it was still very classic looking. It was a classic cruiser. And the same with the Fireball versions were a little bit blacked out, maybe. There was less chrome, but they still had the original font Royal Enfield on it. It was kind of black on black with some bright colours which were quite retro in feel. When we come to the newer bikes from the Royal Enfield lineup, the Hunter is totally a modern bike, really. It's got no chrome, it's got modern sized wheels, it's got spoked wheels, it's got cast wheels, not individual spokes. It kind of feels like just another bike. It doesn't really, for me, have the Royal Enfield charm. Now, let's come on to the Super Meteor 650. That bike has these little touches which bring it kind of more into modern cruiser territory than like a retro cruiser. And don't forget, it's got to compete with the Benelli 502C, the Kawasaki Vulcan 650. So these are kind of low-slung cruiser bikes that are in the same ballpark as the Royal Enfield. But what they've done, and which I don't particularly like about it, they've put things on like the LED side lights for the indicators, the LED headlights. Okay, great, you want the power output of LED and the reliability, it's 10,000 hours or whatever, but the way they designed those items, and I'll show you a picture, make it look very modern looking and feeling. There's upside down forks as well, which is the first Royal Enfield. I kind of rather they went with the standard right way up forks just for the retro look. There's cast wheels, which is fine because they were on the Meteor and they're polished, which is a nice touch. But they are turbine wheels where the spokes are curved backwards, which gives it more of a modern look to me. There's also the combination of matte aluminium and black. So if you look at the front forks, there's a little, over the front fender mudguard, there's a little trim piece that's matte aluminium. The headlight ring is matte aluminium. I probably prefer a little bit more chrome for the bright work. The handlebars are black, but then the switch gear, the casement for that is metal, which is really great, but it's matte aluminium. So you've got this really sort of clashing matte aluminium with black, which I think brings it more modern. On the engine casing, you've got a huge book-sized Royal Enfield logo, which I don't really like. It's the super modern version. I kind of wish they just stuck with just the name Royal Enfield stamped into the engine casing, as it was the Interceptor, for example. Presumably, you could just buy the Interceptor casing and bolt it on to the Super Meteor, but it's a bit of a hassle. I'd just prefer if they kept it a bit more classic looking. Overall, the bike looks great. It's perfect to sit on. It's comfortable. There's I sat on the standard seat, but no doubt the touring seat would be comfortable as well. The only question really is the weight, which we talked about. It's a little bit modern looking, perhaps, for me, coming off a Meteor. And the other thing is, I guess, the quality and the power of the engine as well. So the quality is definitely there, but the power of the engine, you're at 46 bhp, whereas the competitors in this space, they're probably looking at 70 or high 60s. Maybe not the Honda 500 Rebel, that's probably a similar power output, but really this A2 license power output coupled with up to 260 kg, I'm not really sure how that's going to pan out. So it's all in the test rides really. I don't think it'll take sales from the Interceptor, because the Interceptor will still have that modern retro sort of crown and it'll rule that, I think, because it just looks so classic, understated, it just looks perfect. It probably won't take sales from the Meteor either, actually. Having seen them back to back, I think they've got a different feel. Obviously you've got 2 exhaust, which is a different look. You've got the much bigger size, you've got the more modern touches with the matte aluminium. And I think people who still want a £4,000 bike are going to go for the Meteor and just enjoy that. And yeah, it's got 20.2 horsepower, but that's that. And if you're only riding at 60 on country roads, then maybe that's all you need. So I think those people are still going to stick with the Meteors. The Royal Enfield are really clever. They're not going to cannibalise their own sales as much as is possible to not do that. So I think they've positioned it well. The quality is definitely there. It's a really nice bike. It just all comes down to me is how it feels to ride really, with the weight's a little bit of a question. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm not going to talk any more about the Royal Enfield Super Meteor. I'll wait till I get a test ride on the bike, but it looks like a job well done for them, and you know, it'll probably be another successful selling motorcycle.